The rivalry between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers dates back to 1921. But you know, there's a primitive quality to these battles that gives you the sense that the competition began back in the Stone Age. The Bears and Packers have played each other 140 times. And while Chicago has won more than half of these games, what matters in this series is not the math, but the myth.
Programs here, the NFL's oldest rivalry, Packers and Bears. Programs, $2.
This is what football's all about. Let's break on win. Let's break on win. 1, 2, 3, win.
What's the slip, Tater?
Anderson cutting it back. He's in. Touchdown!
No NFL teams have played each other more than the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers. It's the league's longest-running rivalry, a heated matchup that involves fans, friends, and families.
The only thing we don't agree on are two things. One, I'm a Packer fan. I live in Manitowoc. And I'm a Bear fan. I live in the Chicago area. The other thing is, I think light beer is less filling, and I think it tastes great. Go Bears! Go Pack!
The bruising beginning occurred in 1921 when the Packers played the Chicago Staleys, who became the Chicago Bears 1 year later. The tone for this rivalry was set right from the start, when Chicago guard John Tarzan Taylor's sneak punch broke the nose of Packer tackle Howard Cub Buck. 8 decades later, this bitter series is just as intense.
When we played the Bears, all holes were barred. You didn't care what happened. You could have a complete losing season, but if you beat the Bears, that was your season.
But it's not only a rivalry between the teams, those two cities don't like each other, especially the fans.
This antagonism is born of geography as well as longevity, for Wisconsin and Illinois are bordering states. In the early days, Packers fans bordered the sidelines of claustrophobic East Stadium, where on one memorable occasion, this unique kind of neighborly involvement led to an even weirder family affair.
After I started wrestling, I got married to a girl from Boston, and we used to sit on I'd sit on right at the end of the bench with the players, and my wife would sit next to me. And one time we were losing like 35 to 42, and they kicked off to Green Bay. The Green Bay player ran right by me, and I looked for my wife, and I couldn't believe it. She was out running with the player. And they were missing the tackles right along the sideline. Anyway, he went in for a touchdown, she went in for a touchdown. And all the Andy Frayne ushers who handled the ball game there at Wrigley Field in Chicago, they all came in. We had a big fight, and they threw my wife and I onto the street there. So even my wife's been involved in some terrific struggles there at Green Bay.
In the early years, Green Bay did indeed struggle. Their games with Chicago were fiercely fought, but the Bears usually won. For these were George Halas's monsters of the Midway, the kings of pro football.
Come on, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Excellent.
Then came the Lombardi era of the 60s. They were the glory days of Horning, Taylor, and Starr, when the Packs swept all opponents from their path. With 5 championships and 2 Super Bowl victories, Lombardi's team ruled the NFL. George Halas was exasperated.
Here comes a knock on the door in the trainer's room, and it's Papa Bear. And the equipment man answers the door. And he said, "Yes, Coach, can I help you?" He says, "Yes, I'd like to speak to Coach Lombardi. It's very urgent." Now, this is 5 minutes before the game. And he walks in, and here are the 2 coaches by themselves. He says, "Yes, Coach, can I help you?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "Vince, I just want you to know you better have your team ready, because we're going to kick your ass."
It was such a hatred kind of a deal. We looked forward to it all year long. It was a clipping, biting, scratching type of contest.
There are going to be some late hits thrown, probably some cheap shots thrown, some dirty shots thrown, but we know that's a part of the game. We play the Bears.
I've carried a Packer grudge for a long time. Actually, I got a scar from the Packers right here when
when Tim Harris hit me and separated my shoulder.
The ugliest incident occurred in 1986 when Charles Martin's terry cloth hit list included Jim McMahon's number.
I think a lot of guys were shocked, when it actually happened, not only our sideline, but their sideline. It was like it was slow motion because the play was pretty much over, and I remember Martin grabbed him and almost souffled him with a wrestling move and just threw him right on his bad shoulder.
A counterpoint to Martin's villainy was Refrigerator Perry, who in 1985 briefly took center stage, an unlikely weapon that allowed Mike Ditka to pour salt into his arch-rival's wounds.
Hand off to Perry, crashes the right side, touchdown!
The Fridge became a cult hero, and the Bears went on to Super Bowl 20. But in 1989, Ditka's bubble burst with double defeats to the Pack, including one by a single point on a controversial instant replay reversal.
Come on, Magic! Come on, Magic! Come on now!
On 4th and goal from the 14th. Mikowski looking, now stepping up, on the run. He's going to have to throw in the end zone. Throw it on, and touchdown! Sterling Sharp! He caught it!
After further review, we have a reversal touchdown!
When it was determined Packer quarterback Don Mikowski had not been over the line of scrimmage on the winning pass, the Bears were losers. Ditka was so incensed over the 14-13 defeat, he ordered the Bears' public relations staff to put an asterisk next to the score in Chicago's media guide. It's an ironic footnote to an autumn ritual that is the NFL's longest continuing saga, the story battles between the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears, and the players who through the years have made it the great rivalry it is today.